Well, hello everybody. Welcome to this video. I definitely have a lot to get through. Sorry for the delay on making this video happen, but work's been kind of crazy this week. I've actually been going into the office at like 6:30 in the morning and staying till close to 5 in the afternoon, just trying to get stuff done. But, fuck it. I don't have to explain myself. Fuck. I'm just kidding. I love you guys. But, yeah, I've got a lot to get through. Namely WrestleMania and all the stuff that I did over the weekend relating to WrestleMania. And it's a new month, so it's time for me to do my top 10 favorite matches from the month of March 2015. So I got to get through that as well. Because I'm pretty sure, as I'm filming this right now, I'm pretty sure this video is going to end up being pretty long. So there will be a table of contents down below in the description box. Use that to hop around to whatever portion of the video will interest you. Because I'm going to ramble for a little bit in this, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. So, where to start? Before I get into WrestleMania and the Raw that followed, because that's going to take up the bulk of this video, I want to talk about a few other things. Namely, I heard earlier today that NXT is going to be holding monthly takeover specials, and I do want to give my opinions on that, being an avid NXT watcher and everything. Obviously, this is big news for us. I don't like that. I really don't. I'm not trying to be negative or anything, but one of the reasons I like the takeover special so much, and one of the reasons I enjoy watching NXT week to week, is that it is a very slow build-up getting to those big payoffs, and when you get to those takeover specials, they feel special, because I don't get them all the time. So even doing them once a month, I think, would take away from that a little bit. It's kind of like when WWF started doing In Your House, and you started getting monthly pay-per-views. It's like, oh, they don't feel as special anymore. I mean, it's very hard to build that same level of anticipation, because, I mean, they're basically tripling the output in terms of these takeover specials, because they were doing 4 a year, now they're doing 1 a month, so making it 12 a year. So that might be a little bit, overkill and might oversaturate the product. I hope not. Like I've said, NXT is my favorite WWE produced show, so I hope that this doesn't ultimately ruin things. But if they get into this mindset where every takeover special has to have a big title match, every takeover special has to have all the belts on the line, and every takeover special has to have a payoff to every feud, you're going to start seeing a lot of the same problems that plague the main WWE show, where they burn through everything so quickly, nothing gets that long build-up, and the product will ultimately suffer because of it. And again, there is a way to do once a month without burning through everything and allowing slow build-ups. You don't have to have a world title match every month, and I've said that before. I believe that the WWE's main show doesn't need to have a world title match every month. I've said that before. You can hold off, especially after WrestleMania. I mean, to me, it's like, well, chances are, most of the time coming out of WrestleMania, the guy is, having his first title defense, so why do it so quickly after WrestleMania when you know he's not going to lose? Why not save it for a month, or, add like a month or two to that build-up before you see the first title match. That was one of the positives of Brock Lesnar being a part-time champion, is that whenever he did defend the belt, it actually felt special and felt like a huge event. Hogan had that aspect to him in WCW in '97 when he wasn't on TV. He wasn't on TV every week, and he hardly ever defended the title. So when he did, it felt like a big deal. And that match he had with Luger on Nitro was one of the bigger moments in the history of that show, because the WCW title wasn't defended all the time at that point. Eventually it got to a point where it was defended every other week and nobody gave a shit. But, you had David Arquette winning the title and all that crap. But in any case, I do think, not giving us the Holy Grail all the time is a good thing, because you want to build anticipation. You want to make us crawl across broken glass to see these things, but if you constantly give it to us, it feels less special. And another wrestling example, and I know I've said this before, I liked Raw, and this is during the Attitude Era, like when I was, a full-on supporter of the WWF brand, because they were great. I enjoyed Raw a lot more when it was just Raw. When they added SmackDown, to the middle of the week, I felt like that kind of took some of the anticipation away from Raw, because instead of waiting a whole week to see what happens, I'm only waiting 3 nights. And to me, that kind of took away from that a little bit. Even when they added Sunday nights, Sunday Night Heat, that was still, okay, you're still waiting 6 days for a preview of Monday Night Raw, which is essentially what Sunday Night Heat was. But, yeah, I felt like that they kind of lost something there. I felt when they added SmackDown as a permanent show. And it was just, Raw wasn't quite as... Not that the Raws in 2000 were bad. I mean, far from it. They were delivering some spectacular shows in 2000. But I did kind of miss that anticipation of, oh my God, Raw just ended and it was amazing. I can't wait until the next show, and I have to wait a goddamn week to see it. And... that's definitely missing, and I felt like SmackDown definitely cut into that. So I hope that doing monthly takeover specials doesn't kill NXT. I would hate that, and if WWE ruins NXT through this move, I'm going to get pissed off, because it's like the one thing I liked, the one thing I really, really liked on a regular basis, and you had to take that from me. But we'll see what happens with it. But, whatever happens, but we'll see. Also wanted to talk about what else? TNA. I watched that on Friday night. I'll give TNA credit. They at least they're trying to deliver now. It's like, as before, like, I felt like they were just coasting and being like, whatever. What the fuck, let's just throw anything out there. It feels like they're at least trying. Not all of it works, and there's still a lot of dumb crap on the show, and it sometimes it can drag like a motherfucker, but the last few weeks they've managed to have some big matches on the show to at least make it feel like they're trying. Like, I thought the Hardy James Storm cage match they had on Friday night was actually pretty solid. And it was actually a cage match where the gimmick was warranted given the build-up. And how Hardy was put out of action by Storm. It's like, all right, so at least this match deserves to have a cage gimmick, unlike most of TNA's cage matches. And at least they are trying to make it feel like a big match. And the match itself was pretty solid, so okay. I'm not saying the show's great. I'm not saying it's massively improved or anything. Well, it has improved, not to the point that, all is saved and all is well or anything, but they're at least trying. So I can give them credit for that. I watched the Hall of Fame. I guess this is where I'll jump into the WrestleMania related stuff. I should note, I didn't get a chance to watch Supercard of Honor 9. I thought that was supposed to be on pay-per-view, and I kept going to Ring of Honor's website, and they never had it posted. So I don't know, was that supposed to be a pay-per-view, or did I misread that or something? Because it feels weird to me. But whatever, I've already had the results spoiled for me, so now I'm just... don't want to see it, but so no matches from Supercard of Honor 9 made it onto my top 10 list because I ultimately didn't see the show, but I did watch the Hall of Fame, and I have to say I'm getting to a point where I probably enjoy the Hall of Fame more than WrestleMania, because it's like, it's a chance to relive some great memories and see some old faces, and for the guys to be real and to speak from the heart a little bit, and I kind of like that, and I think it usually makes for a good event with some tearjerker moments and some happy moments, some big laughs and everything. So the Hall of Fame is actually a pretty classy event to have to kind of lead into WrestleMania. I remember back at WrestleManias 12 and 13, they used to, the night before, they would do the Slammy Awards, and that did not work as a kickoff to WrestleMania. That was like, really, the shitty awards show? That's not that there wasn't good stuff on there, like Owen Hart being awesome. He stole the award. I'll never forget that. He stole the award for Best Bow Tie. You might have 2 titles, but you don't have 2 Slammies. I mean, that was amazing. I love that. Owen Hart was, on the rare occasion that they let Owen Hart cut loose and be really funny, he was really, really funny. But other than that, I mean, the Slammy Awards were typically not very interesting and not very good, but I think the Hall of Fame has definitely taken its place and become a really solid addition to the whole WrestleMania experience. I'm actually sorry I didn't get to go. When I went to 29, I didn't get to go to the Hall of Fame that year, and I'm kind of sorry I didn't, because that would have been great to see Bruno get inducted and all of that stuff. But going over some of the speeches, I thought I thought the Bushwhackers were funny. I want Butch to be my uncle. I don't know who I have to marry to make that man my uncle, but good Lord. I mean, it's just hilarious. I just want to sit down, have some beers, and just talk with Butch and just be like, so, Uncle Butch, what happened today? And just let him just go off on some wild tangent. It'd be really funny. I thought, Hogan gave a nice induction speech for Savage, and I thought Lanny's speech for his brother was nice for the most part, and I actually got a little teary-eyed at one point. Alundra Blaze's Medusa speech was amazing. I thought she probably stole the show. And I love that she finally got to tell her side of the story on why she threw the belt in the trash, and it's the reason that I've been saying ever since she did it. It was like, all right, look, WWF fired her. WCW was the only other game in town. If she did not do what Eric Bischoff told her to do, she would have gotten fired, and then she'd have nowhere to go. And it's like, nobody seemed to be able to grasp that. They just kind of labeled her as a bitch, and, she deserved to be blacklisted from the WWF, even though in 2002 they hired the guy that told her to do it. And to me, if the title was so important to Vince, he wouldn't have fired her or would have taken the belt off of her before he fired her or given her a better send-off than what she did. She got no send-off. Actually, I remember that. Her last match was the 10-woman tag at Survivor Series where Aja Kong beat her. And you think, oh, this is going to be their next women's title feud. And no, nothing ever came of it. And Aja Kong made a great impression. I was like, oh my God, she's awesome. And we never saw her again. So, there was a side to her story that she never... it often gets overlooked, and she often got labeled like a rebel and a bitch for doing what she did, when really she was just following orders for the sake of job security, which she pretty much said. When she brought up her husband and everything, that was all very good, and, her thanking everybody throughout her career was also very nice, and overall, I thought she probably had the best speech on the show. Hers was very good. I thought Shawn's induction speech for Nash was hilarious. This big guy is white hot. Well, Vince, I kind of feel like we're white hot. No. This big guy is really white hot. And I can just picture Vince doing it. I can just picture it. It's the whole thing. So, overall, I thought the Hall of Fame was very nice, very classy. The stuff for Connor that they did was obviously very classy and very nice and very heartfelt. And Daniel's speech was obviously very tough, obviously on him and for us getting to watch it, but it was very emotional, and all that stuff. So overall, I really enjoyed the Hall of Fame. It's always a very nice thing to watch, and I've gotten to where I really enjoy it. So, anyway, I will say this. I was disappointed in the Hall of Fame that Ric Flair was not blind, stinking drunk. Because one of my favorite induction speeches ever was the year he inducted Piper. So this would have been in 2005. Go back and watch that speech. Flair was flipping drunk, which was hilarious because all the Flair marks on the net the next day that wrote their little reviews of the show are all like, oh my God, Flair's speech was amazing, and it was funny, and it was heartfelt, and I had a tear in my eye, and I'm like, I had a tear in my eye from laughing because of how drunk he was. He was babbling like a buffoon. It was hilarious, and I'm like, he's drunk, he's schnockered. It's hilarious, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was schnockered in my last video, so it's completely fine. But I'm just saying, go back and watch that speech and I dare you to tell me he wasn't drunk. It was, and then blah blah blah. He woke up next morning with phlebitis. You don't screw with Roddy Piper, okay? I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? I don't care, but it's funny. But I was disappointed that he was sober. And it was like, oh, I can understand what he's saying. Damn. Rats. Ric Flair behaved himself tonight. But anyway, I do like that they put Fujinami in, though. It is nice that they break outside the WWE and put guys in based on their accomplishments throughout the entire business rather than... I mean, even the Bushwhackers, who you would think... you kind of look at them and you think, oh, well, what kind of a Hall of Fame career did they have? It's like, well, if you look at their WWF career, sure, but when you look at their whole body of work outside of the WWE, I mean, they were, world-traveled tag team and a great act. I mean, I've seen some of the Sheep Herder stuff, and they were scary. They were actually legitimately scary at one point. It's hard to imagine the Bushwhackers being that way, but I'm like, man, I kind of wish we got them in the WWF. That would have been awesome, but... I'm picturing the Sheep Herders feuding with like Demolition and the Road Warriors. It would have been amazing, but no, goofball comedy act. But they made money off of it, and the Bushwhackers did have their moments. But I'll never forget that episode of Primetime Wrestling where they literally worked the entire episode around getting a pumpkin off of Jameson's head. And if you don't remember who Jameson is, he's this wimpy little nerdy character that hung around with the Bushwhackers every so often. I believe he started out on the Bobby Heenan show. I have no idea what that character was supposed to be. I really don't. I have no idea what the purpose of that character was. It always baffled me as a kid. But every once in a while, they would bring him out and just do comedy skits with him, and I never got it. I never understood what the point of that character was. But whatever. Anyway, I babbled on long enough. But anyway, the Hall of Fame, very nice. I really enjoyed it. Now let's go into WrestleMania. I've heard varying opinions on this show. A lot of people loved it, and I can see why. I've talked to some people who fucking hated it to an immense level, to a passionate level that is downright scary. I've definitely seen that side of it. So you got these two extremes here that I've experienced. I've seemed to be one of the few people that's more in the middle. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't terrible, but I kind of like this and this and this. And, overall, I had a blast watching it. And that's the thing I will say. Watching it was a hoot and a half because I watched it with two friends of mine who are... I've never actually sat down and watched a wrestling show with because I only met them like a couple years ago, and we've never actually sat down and watched a wrestling show together. And we did on this occasion, and we were in rare form that night because we were just making fun of everything. Whether it was good, bad, didn't matter. We were just cracking wise the entire night. Mystery Science Theater definitely came to mind while a lot of it was going on. We were just the fucking peanut gallery. It was hilarious. Whether it was good or bad, it didn't matter. We were just making fun of it. So by the end, it was like I enjoyed myself just being an idiot the entire time. But I wish I had a camera on us the whole time because we just went fucking nuts the entire night. It was great. So regardless of the quality of the show, good or bad, I can say I enjoyed watching it just because we just had a ball and just kind of made our own show out of it. Of course, the commentary was bad as always, so us filling in the blanks there was kind of nice. But I guess I'll start at the beginning. Let's jump into the pre-show. Now, first of all, I definitely have to address this. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal was bumped to the pre-show. This was a decision that was made. Literally, I read about it right after I posted my last video, my WrestleMania preview video. And I'm a little disappointed whenever they do stuff like that, because to me, it kind of... yes, it's a battle royal, and yes, it's just filler, but at the same time, it's like you're kind of screwing guys out of that Mania spotlight that you could use to highlight guys. Like Damien Sandow, and I'll say it again, I don't care, Miz and Mizdow should have had their match at WrestleMania. They deserved it. The build-up deserved it. The build-up warranted it. They deserved to have a one-on-one WrestleMania match. They didn't get that, so it's like, all right, you're going to put them in the Battle Royal. At least let them have their big moment in the Battle Royal, which should have happened at the Royal Rumble, but we won't go there. They do the big turn where Sandow finally breaks away from Miz, and they do all of that stuff. But they bumped it to the pre-show, so it doesn't get that Mania kind of spotlight to it. And to me, that's kind of disappointing. I always feel bad for guys whenever that happens to them. I mean, that must be really disheartening. It's like, look, you're not really doing anything with me, and I'm trying to get on the Mania card. A lot of part-timers take spots away, just throwing that out there. But, you work hard to get on the Mania card, and then you get bumped off. And as I talk about the main show, there are definitely time management issues that could have been avoided. I'm just going to throw that out there. That's all I'll say until I get into specifics. But I always feel bad for guys when that happens. I remember when I was at 29, I felt bad. And of course, it's the same guy. Damien Sandow and Cody Rhodes, I believe the Bellas were supposed to face the Funkasaurus, Tensai, and the Funkadactyls in intergender tag or whatever. And, not the biggest match on the show. Wouldn't have meant too much in the grand scheme of things, but still, it's like that's their Mania spot, and they ended up losing it because their time management was extremely poor. And I always feel bad for guys whenever that happens to them. Daniel Bryan and Sheamus at 27 happened to them. It seems to happen a lot more frequently in recent years, and it's always disappointing, I think. But Anyway, let's talk about the two matches that happened on the pre-show. The four-way tag team match for the tag titles. Kid and Cesaro versus the Usos versus the Matadors versus the New Day, who are terrible and they suck. And it's not the guy's fault. It's not Kofi's fault. It's not Big E's fault. It's not Xavier Woods' fault. The gimmick sucks, and the crowd responded appropriately. And I'm sorry, I feel bad for you guys. I really do. But your gimmick sucks, and you need to get mad at somebody and raise a stink over it because it's terrible. But, anyway, the match itself was kind of one of those spot-festy car wreck matches. It's kind of like what I said about the Red Dragon Young Bucks match from the Ring of Honor 13th Anniversary Special. Tag Team Psychology is dead. I should just accept it at this point. There's no rhyme or reason to anything. They just kind of bounce around and do spots, and the whole thing's a fucking free-for-all, and by the end of it, there's really no point in tagging in and out. At one point, the referee waved off a pin attempt because Big E Langston was not the legal man. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, I'm almost certain that Big E was the one that did the last pin attempt. Like, he was the one that went for a pin the last time. And I'm pretty sure there were no tags in between. I'll have to go back and rewatch it, but I'm pretty sure that happened. And I'm just like, there's no rhyme or reason to any of this shit. It's just... But, for a spot-festy car wreck, it was fun. It was action-packed. The spots were pretty, at least, and, what was ultimately just a cram as many guys in there as possible type of match. It would serve that purpose, I guess, so I can let it slide based on that. So, and the right team went over. Kid and Cesaro should definitely be the tag champions, given the other options. I mean, you look at the rest of the tag division. New Day sucks. The crowd pretty much made that statement loud and clear. The Matadors are boring as hell and terrible, and I don't like their gimmick at all. The Usos are kind of stale, and one of them's hurt, so it doesn't even really matter anyway. They've already kind of fucked up the Ascension. The Primetime Players aren't doing anything, and the Lucha Dragons, who just debuted on Raw last night, they're brand new to the main show, so they're not firmly established yet. So really, I mean, Kid and Cesaro are their only options for tag champs at this point. So right team went over. Battle Royal, I've already kind of talked about it a little bit. The Miz and Mizdow spot was fun. There were a couple other cool moments here and there. But other than that, it was pretty much just a typical Battle Royal. Big Show won, which wasn't a huge shock. I was shocked to hear that this is the first Battle Royal he's won. Is that true? Like, in his whole career? Like, even if I counted WCW, this is like the first Battle Royal he's ever won? Because I can't recall one that he's ever won. Again, if anybody wants to correct me, feel free to post it down in the comments, but I don't recall ever seeing Big Show win a Battle Royal. And it's like, and they wonder why they couldn't get him over as a big giant. They wonder why he doesn't have the same, the same mystique that Andre the Giant does, because Andre was viewed as unbeatable. WrestleMania 3, which, by the way, I did rewatch WrestleMania 3 this weekend. I'm going to tie it into the main event, which I'm going to come back to that, but... there was something very interesting that just popped in my brain, and really, it shows how weird my wrestling brain is when I notice things like this. But I'll come back to that when I get back to that. But for WrestleMania 3, they convinced people that Andre the Giant was unbeaten for 15 years. It wasn't completely true, but they were able to convince and book Andre... They were able to convince people and book Andre in a way where he was viewed as unbeatable. And a lot of that had to do with booking him in Battle Royals, where he was almost undefeated in Battle Royals. He was kind of the king of the Battle Royals. I remember Monsoon making the call a lot of times where he'd be like, Andre the Giant has won more Battle Royals than any wrestler in history. And, that's why... Big Show never got that same level of promotion and was oversaturated anyway. So he never got the same mystique that Andre did. So the fact that this is the first Battle Royal he's ever won, I'm like, oh, that's sad. Like, that's really sad, but whatever. The Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal could have been a nice springboard to give somebody a character arc and develop them and give them something over the next year, like Cesaro. They fucked him up, so now it's kind of like, all right, they don't really need to do this anymore. They've kind of already screwed the pooch on that whole concept, but oh well. But yeah, those are the two pre-show matches. Not bad. I mean, they weren't terrible or anything, and for pre-show matches, they were perfectly acceptable for what they were. And now let's kick off WrestleMania 31 or WrestleMania Play Button or whatever you want to call it. Next year's WrestleMania is going to be WrestleMania Cowboy Star. I saw the logo last night and I'm like, yeah, who needs numbers? Fuck that noise. But anyway, before I get into the matches, I do want to talk about the musical acts that were on the show. And I understand having musical acts and trying to, generate interest in the show or whatever. I mean, the Super Bowl had Katy Perry and everything, and I don't like her music at all. But at least she's nice to look at. I have to say, like, the people they got to do, and I don't even know who they are, because I'm not hip with the youths. I'm not. I had no idea who they were. I could not tell you who sang America the Beautiful and who had that concert after the Sting Triple H match. I couldn't tell you who they were. I was like, this is where I'm like, I'm an old fart. I have no idea who these people are. But they were terrible. I mean, they were awful. I was like, really? Was it really necessary to get them on the show? I mean, they suck. I mean, they were terrible. And it's America the Beautiful, for God's sake. You can't even get someone good to do that. I remember, again, referencing WrestleMania 3, Aretha Franklin owned that shit, man. She was amazing. Watching it again, I'm like, damn right, Aretha, you're awesome. Damn right. I don't want to hear anybody call her fat. She's amazing. She's like, yeah, if she's big, it's because her voice is so amazing, she needs that body to contain it. That's how awesome Aretha Franklin is. Yes, I'm geeking out for Aretha Franklin. Shut the fuck up. Ray Charles at WrestleMania 2, fantastic. Loved him. Lillian Garcia, whenever she's done it, beautiful. This guy, whoever they got to do it, terrible. I don't know his name, but I was like, wow, you suck, buddy. That's just lousy. But anyway, moving on. And the concert was also lousy, whoever the hell they were. And again, this is where I reference Katy Perry was at least nice to look at. Whoever it was they shelved out there on this show did not. So it was just miserable all around. It offended almost all my senses. Although I'm sure it made a very nice piss break for everyone that was there in the arena. Because when there was the concert at 29, I definitely used it to go to the concession stand. So, there is a value to those Mania concerts. And it's has nothing to do with money or business or anything like that. It is legitimately like the best piss break you could ever have on a wrestling show. But, so I've already gotten that out of the way. We don't need to talk about that anymore. All right, now getting into the matches. We started off with the ladder match for the Intercontinental title. Again, when I talk about the main event, I'm going to circle back to that, and it's going to tie into WrestleMania 3 too, so just bear with me. When I talk about Lesnar, Reigns, and everything that happened there. So I'm going to come back to that. But there was one aspect of this match that was brilliant, which, again, I'll talk about that later. The rest of it, it was the same as every other multi-man ladder match I've ever seen. I mean, they all look the same after a while, and that's kind of the problem. When you have so many components and you have so many variables and so many bodies thrown in there, they all look the same to me. I'm sorry, and to me, this wasn't any different from all the other Money in the Bank ladder matches. And, not that there's not an enjoyment factor to be gotten out of these. Like I said, they're car wreck matches. They're just spot-festy car wrecks, guys diving off of ladders and doing all that crazy stuff. And it's fine, but I guarantee you I'm not going to remember this match in 2 months. And very rarely do the ladder matches that are done in this fashion leave much of an impact on me beyond who won. And Daniel Bryan won, which was their way of throwing us a bone and just being like, look, see, we're doing something important with him. It's like, yay, thanks. I'm not saying the match was bad. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but it was just, like I said, it was just a car wreck, spot-festy type of match that really doesn't have a whole lot of substance to it beyond that. I miss the ladder matches from my youth. And this is where I'm going to sound like an old fart here. Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon at 10. One ladder, two guys. They would build drama over who got their hands on the ladder first. You don't see that anymore. And that's just one of those... I'm old. I'm an old fart. Tag team psychology is dead. Ladder matches aren't supposed to have psychology at all. I need to just just give up on that and just shut the fuck up. But anyway, like I said, the ladder match was good for what it was. It's just that these matches aren't very substantial to me to begin with. And I still kind of feel bad for like the Zigglers and the Bryans and the Ambroses, because I just kind of feel like they deserve better. And they deserve better than having to dive off of ladders just to get on the highlight reel. But they should have been in something more substantial, I think. Of course, I'd have to go back and rebook the entire card, but I don't feel like doing that. But, Daniel Bryan won. The crowd got their feel-good moment, and that's fine. So, overall, it was an action-packed opener, that's a good thing to have. So, there's that. Next up, I believe, was my favorite match on the show, actually. Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins. I really enjoyed this match. I thought the two meshed together very well. I thought the action was intense and great. I thought not making it a street fight or some kind of a no DQ match would hurt the match. I mentioned that in my preview, actually, where Orton just beat the ever-living shit out of Rollins to the point that it's like, this match has to be like a street fight or something to live up to that, because, a regular match just isn't going to cut it. But I thought they did pretty well. I thought it was just very good all around, and that finish was terrific, where Rollins was going for the curb stomp, and Randy Orton just kind of popped him up for the RKO. And actually, one of my friends got a text from a friend of his, and the text read, "How much you want to bet Pat Patterson booked that finish?" Which I wouldn't be surprised, because Pat Patterson is an underrated wrestling mind. And really, a lot of the stuff makes a lot more sense when he's booking, especially with like the use of DQ finishes. Because I can't stand it when heels will run into the ring and cause a DQ and stop a fellow partner from getting pinned. Unless the title's on the line, that ending makes no sense, because you're still costing your partner to the match. He's still losing, and presumably he's still getting, the loser's cut of the pay rather than the winner's cut of the pay. So in the end, you're costing him, whether the WWE or any other wrestling company wants to acknowledge that context or not. I mean, I was like, all right, you just cost your friend a match. It's like, so to me, that type of finish only makes sense if there's a title on the line and the heels are trying to save their champion buddy from keeping his title and cause him to keep his title. That's the only time that makes sense. Other than that, you're just causing your guy to lose. You didn't see a whole lot of that when Pat was booking. So I wouldn't be surprised if Pat had a little say in that finish, because that was a really creative, well-executed finish and just really beautiful. One of the reasons I fell in love with the Diamond Cutter as a finisher was that DDP could hit that thing from anywhere. It felt like all the different variations and different ways he could hit the Diamond Cutter just made the move more exciting. I know it's kind of become a joke, RKO out of nowhere and all the Vine videos and everything, but that is what makes the move exciting, I think, when you can hit it from out of nowhere and, to keep the trope alive and be creative with it and do all these, because to me it makes the move more dangerous when you don't know when it's coming. I always loved the Diamond Cutter as a finisher, and I like the RKO as a finisher. Just because we have Michael Cole spouting a stupid line every time he hits it, it doesn't mean that the move is silly. There was that. And anyway, I thought the match was very, 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 very good, and I really liked it. I don't think there were any matches on the show that I would say is a huge favorite of mine or was a match of the year contender or anything like that. But this one was definitely my favorite, and I really enjoyed it. And this is another topic for another time. Just because a show doesn't have a 4-star match, quote unquote, or it doesn't have any match of the year contenders or anything like that, that doesn't mean that it's not a good show. I believe that you got to look at the whole, and was it entertaining? Was it paced well? Did they deliver big moments? Did the right guys go over? There's so many other factors that go into play rather than whether or not it was a 4-star match. And there's not some sort of star rating quota, at least in my opinion, that that guarantees the quality of a show. To me, there's more factors in play other than that. Again, when I talk about WrestleMania 3 and when I come back to the ladder match and I talk about the main event, I'll explain that and how the show has to be viewed as a whole. I'll come back to that, I promise. Anyway, I really enjoyed this match. I thought Orton and Rollins had the best match on the show, and I really enjoyed it. And actually, like I said, if they had not done all the stupid stuff in the build-up from Fastlane, or from the night after Fastlane to when Orton beat the crap out of him, this would have been the best built match on the show. But, it's a shame that couldn't happen. But anyway, it was what it was, and I thought the match was very good, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, we got Sting versus Triple H, and oh my god, this match was a barrel of monkeys. Where to begin with this one? First of all, there were all sorts of speculation of what we were going to get out of Sting physically. Because those of us that watched him in TNA saw at the end, he was not trying anymore, and he had gotten out of shape. He was wrestling most of his matches in T-shirts. He didn't look like Sting anymore. He didn't look very good. So there was a lot of concern of what we were going to get out of him. I'll say this. I thought Sting did pretty well. I thought physically he looked good. I think I don't think he embarrassed himself by any stretch of the imagination. I thought he looked quite good. Not prime Sting and not the Sting of old, but he looked at least as good as he did in that period in TNA where it was 06, 07, where he definitely looked good enough to be out there working. So I thought Stinger did good in that, or he did well in that aspect, to use proper grammar. But he did very well in that aspect, and I thought Sting definitely tried in this. So there was that. I have to talk about the entrances because this is where the peanut gallery stuff really started with my friends. When Sting came out, I liked his entrance with the Japanese drummers and everything. I thought it was a different flavor. It was, it was different, and I kind of like that. His theme song though sucks. The WWE Sting theme is terrible and bland, and I wish they would just use the old Crow theme. Because that was so much better. I mean, my God, his theme from TNA is better, and that's how the fuck did that happen? Because his TNA theme sounded like a bumblebee trapped in a guitar. So, but it was livelier than this, and it doesn't have the same atmosphere that the Crow theme did. But as he was making his entrance, my friends and I, and these two friends I should note were big WCW marks back in the day, so they really were digging Sting, and we're happy to see him. And when he came out, we were all like, man, his theme song sucks. So, on cue, we all started singing, "The Man Called Sting!" And we started singing his old, Surfer Boy, early 90s Sting theme song. And when I say sing the theme song, I mean we were just shouting, "The Man Called Sting!" over and over and over again. That's all, because those are the only words we knew. But so we had a ball with that. So if you could imagine three grown men yelling "The Man Called Sting" and singing it at the top of their lungs as Sting was making his entrance, I mean, that was pretty amazing. That was one of our fun little silly riffing moments. I thought Triple H's entrance was cheesy as fuck and did not come off well. I thought the Terminators that they had set up on the stage, the fact that they didn't move made it look worse. I don't know. It just didn't. And the video package they did and everything was just really, really cheesy and really just bad and everything. And I don't know. That and the getup he wore didn't work either with the skulls and I'm sure on paper it looked very good, but it didn't come off well in execution. I will say this though, and this was an observation my friends had. You had Charles Robinson as the referee in this match. You had more run-ins than, and I'll get into that. We had more run-ins than you could count on two hands. You had Sting in there. You had the cheesy entrance from Triple H with the weird video package and everything. One of my friends had the greatest call of the night where he was like, "Oh my God, this really is a WCW match. You got Charles Robinson, you got Sting, you got cheesy video packages, you got more run-ins than God knows what and everything." And it was like, "Oh my God, this is a WCW match." It was just, this match was wacky, I have to say. I could spend an hour talking about this match and just how insane it was. But, and I haven't even started talking about the actual match yet, but all that stuff surrounding it I thought was very funny. It's like, yeah, this definitely does have a WCW vibe to it, definitely. Anyway, getting into the match, like I said, I thought Sting looked very good. I thought overall the match was going well. When I say Sting definitely tried hard, that spot where he dove off the top rope onto DX, I thought was more effort than I would have expected out of him. I was like, wow, I haven't seen him do that since the King of the Mountain match in 06, I think. He did a similar spot, and it was cool to see that kind of effort out of Sting again. I was like, okay. And they allowed Sting to have all those big moments, like when he broke the sledgehammer in half with the bat, I was like, yes! Mark out! Awesome. Although, I will say this. When did they announce that this was a no DQ match? Because that was very confusing. Because I don't remember them ever saying that this was a no DQ match. At least not in the build-up. And to be fair, I only half paid attention to the pre-show roundtable stuff, so maybe they announced it there. But I don't recall ever hearing that this was a no DQ match. And apparently, Lillian Garcia said it in the intro. I must have missed that. But again, it was a last-minute stip. But when all the run-ins started happening, all the weapons started happening, I'm like, is the referee just going to let this go? Okay, WCW match. We're just going to... Okay, WCW match. We're just going to let that shit slide. Okay, never mind. I will say this. When DX came out, and I was like, boo, fuck that, boo, and everything, because we were all cheering for Sting, of course, and we were like, this is bullshit, and one of my friends immediately says, the NWO is going to come out, and sure enough, he was right. He was Mr. Wrestling Psychic on that one, and it took them forever to get down that ramp, didn't it? But I'm not going to lie, I did kind of mark for the NWO, because it was kind of cool. I don't know, even though it makes no sense that the NWO would help Sting, because Sting's Crow gimmick was born out of the fact that he was trying to fight the NWO. Although Sting did join the Wolfpack at one point in 98, so he was a member of the NWO. But then again, if you look at TNA, and if you accept TNA as canon, he did end up on good terms with both Nash and Hogan. But then to detract from it, I thought Nash was friends with Triple H, but wait a minute, the last time we saw them, they feuded. I don't know, what the fuck? I don't know where I'm going with this. Whatever. It was just weird. I didn't care. The NWO was out there and they beat up DX, which kind of made me happy, because I was always more of a... let me put it this way. I liked the earliest incarnation of the NWO way more than I liked most incarnations of DX. I liked DX the most when it was Shawn and Triple H in like 97, 98. And especially leading into WrestleMania 14. After that, they just kind of became a cheap excuse to sell T-shirts to me. Like, there was kind of this, I don't know, kind of synthetic quality to it. It's like, yeah, suck it and buy our shirt. Kind of like Attitude Era version of John Cena. I didn't really dig it as much as I did like Austin or Rock or Foley or Undertaker. I wasn't a fan of it. I liked it more when Shawn was there, because when Shawn was there, the anger and the vitriol felt real, and I don't know, that's just me. And the NWO, again, it kind of like, the NWO was at its best for the first year and a half, up until about Starrcade 97, where the wheels came off the wagon and they fucked everything up, but what are you gonna do? WCW, they fucked up a lot of things, but I did kind of mark for the NWO, not gonna lie. So I'm enjoying this. They did the sledgehammer spot I talked about, which was great, and I'm like, oh my god, this is actually... And we're all looking at each other like, yeah, we're having a ball with this. This is fun. I mean, it stopped being a real match like 10 minutes ago, but I don't care. I'm having a ball. This is fun. And then... Triple H goes over. Okay? When that happened, we just kind of, my friends and I, we just kind of sat there in silence, and we just kind of turned and looked at each other, and we smirked, and we were like, of course that happened. Of course that happened. We should have known better. We should not have deluded ourselves into thinking that Vince was going to allow Mr. WCW go over his son-in-law at WrestleMania. We should have known better. And it sucked. I mean, that really kind of sucked the life out of that match, because it was like, the one time I want one of the legends to go over, the one time I would have been completely fine with it, they don't do it. And I just kind of look at that and like, it's Sting's first WWE match. Let us have this. I mean, you've spent so much time shitting on WCW, and for one night, I thought maybe they're going to give their guys some credit. Maybe they're going to give WCW some credit and say that there was some legitimacy to that company, because, and I've said it before, the idea that WCW always sucked and everything they did sucked, and which has kind of been... That's kind of the reputation that they have now, especially among younger fans that just don't know any better. I'm like, no, there was a point when WCW was better than WWF. It is completely true. The show, and that's not just because of their rating success and that they were beating them business-wise. The show was legitimately better from 96 to 97. The show was better, and I don't care what anybody tells me. From the time the NWO started till about Starrcade 97, WCW was a superior show to the WWF. And I would even argue that there were points in the early 90s when WCW was better. or at least as good. I mean, the Sting-Vader matches from 92 to 94 were better than almost everything WWF was doing at that point. There was a lot of that. And the fact that WCW gets almost no credit for a lot of stuff, and WWF kind of rewrites history to shit on them and stuff is very troubling and upsetting. And for this one night, I thought, oh my God, the NWO got over on DX, they're going to let Sting get over on Triple H, and it's going to be like WCW is going to get their night to shine. And then they had Triple H go over, and I'm just like, you fuckers. You motherfuckers. And it's like, look, it's Sting's first match in the WWF, and we know he's going to get jobbed out to Taker next year. We know. I've already accepted that, and I've got a lot to say about Undertaker, but I'll get there when I get there. But the fact that they booked that finish the way they did is so... And I always have to hear, it's like, oh, the legends deserve their feel-good moments. Oh, the legends... it's okay. It's okay that Undertaker beat Punk for the title in 2009. It's okay that Brett beat Miz for the U.S. title in, 2010. It's okay that the Outsiders won the tag titles and the New Age Outlaws won the tag titles and, TNA had this guy over and this happened and, all these old guys. It's okay because they're legends and they should have their moment in the sun before they go or whatever. The one time it should have happened, the one time I would have been completely okay with it, and they didn't do it. And the reason I say that, I could understand if he was going up against John Cena. Even John Cena, who I can't stand, I would have understood it. Because, look, Cena's their top guy, and I get it. I was like, all right, you can't have him jobbing out to a 55-year-old man. I totally understand that. Triple H is a part-timer who runs the fucking company now. He doesn't need that win. It doesn't do anything. If anything, this would have been the best way to give Sting a win because he's not hurting anybody. He's not beating Brock. He's not ending the streak. He's not, because the streak's already over. He's not beating their top guy in John Cena. He's not beating The Rock, who, I guess he's going to come back at the next WrestleMania. They're not doing anything like that. They're beating the guy that runs the company and wrestles part-time anyway. So to me, this would have been the best opportunity to give Sting a win. They didn't do it. And it's like, oh, you motherfuckers. You just couldn't do it. And then the handshake at the end was stupid. Because, and then Triple H comes out later in the show in a business suit showing no signs of wear and tear. And it's like, oh, of course, he's completely fine now. It's like, oh, great. So, overall, the match was better than I think a lot of people expected, and like I said, it was a barrel of monkeys, and was insane, and at one point it stopped being a match altogether, but that finish kind of sucked the life out of it, and that was one of the downer points of this WrestleMania. It's like, you couldn't let us have that, could you? Vince, god damn it, god damn you. It's like, you just couldn't let that happen. Why not? Because, I'll say it again, he's going to lose to Undertaker next year, so it's like, okay, so Sting is never going to win a match in the WWE. Is that what you're telling me? Great. Wonderful. I'm so glad that you signed him. But anyway, that was that. Then we got the shitty concert, which I already talked about. And I believe next was the... was it the Divas match next? I don't know. The Divas match was forgettable. It wasn't awful. They were blown a couple spots towards the end, but it wasn't terrible. It was filler, though. There was nothing remarkable either. I thought the Divas match they had on Raw the next night was actually better, but in any case, it wasn't an offensive match, but it was purely just a filler match, so it was whatever. It left no impression on me one way or the other. Then I believe the next one was... I feel like I'm forgetting a match. Am I? No, I'm not. Okay, I believe next was Cena and Rusev for the U.S. title, which, talking about entrances, Rusev's entrance was both hilarious and awesome, because he came out to the Soviet Union national anthem. I'm like, oh my god, it's like Ivan Drago was coming out. He came out in a fucking tank with goose-stepping soldiers. I'm like, this is the most hilariously awesome thing ever. And, it was, but it looked amazing, and I kind of enjoyed it. I kind of got a kick out of it. Cena's entrance was stupid, because that rah-rah pro-America video package was just, ridiculous and cheesy. It's like, I hate the fact that he represents my country. John Cena, that bothers me. I'm actually, as an American, I'm legitimately bothered that he's the savior for America. Match itself wasn't bad. But there was, again, I just didn't like the story, and the story is Cena wins, LOL. And that's pretty much just the inevitability to it, where it's like you just know Cena's gonna win. I like that Cena broke out a couple moves that we don't usually see from him, like that springboard stunner or whatever. That looked weird, but whatever it was like, okay. I mean, he's trying new things. I'll give him that. It's not the same old formulaic bullshit that I'm used to seeing. Well, it is, but at least he changed it up somewhat. Yeah, that's really all there is to say. It's just a shame that Rusev got built up for as long as he did just to get fed to John Cena. He's just another statistic on John Cena, another notch on John Cena's belt. And it's, and again, I knew it was coming. I knew that was going to happen. And, yeah, it is what it is. Rusev's, going into our peanut gallery comments, one of us had the comment, it's like, looking at Rusev, it's kind of like Silent Bob trying to play Ivan Drago. Does anybody else think that? Again, we were being idiots all night, so just bear with us. But we were having a ball. Lana was probably the best part of the match because she is so nice to look at. And again, another one of my friends made a great comment when she took her shoe off and just threw it, and she's walking around with no shoes on. He was like, "Oh, she's not wearing shoes now. Now it's a party," and we were just being dirty old men looking. And actually, to go back to the Divas match, a friend of my friend and I were fighting over who would get to fuck Paige, and because Paige is a cutie, and I do kind of have a crush on her. And he was like, and we were like, who would get her, him or me? And he looked at me, he's like, bro, I love you. I would strangle you while looking you in your eyes if it meant that I would get to her. And I'm like, I can't be mad at you for that. I was like, I wouldn't blame you at all. There'd be no resentment there. It's just that, she is that hot. That's just how it is. But again, we were being weird the entire night. And I should also note, very little alcohol consumption. I think I only had 2 beers and my other friends only had like 1 or 2 each. So it wasn't like, we weren't even drunk. We were just in a weird ass mood, just cracking wise the entire night. It was fun. I wish to God I had a video of it. I had to put a camera on us because it would have been better than this video actually, because I'm just babbling at this point. But I'm trying to recreate it, and I can't do it. I just can't. But anyway, U.S. title match. It wasn't a bad match. The inevitability of it. I was like, all right, I know. Cena wins. Cena, just do it. Just fucking do it. And he won. Yay. But that's that. Yeah. Next up was the segment that involved Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, The Rock, and Ronda Rousey, which might be getting ready to set a record. I think they're trying to break Curtis Axel's Royal Rumble record with that particular segment. That segment might still be going. That's how long it was. It is. And I'll talk about Ronda Rousey in a second, but God damn, that thing went on forever. And I'm not one of these type of guys that's like, you can't do talking segments on a wrestling show. How dare you? You can't do that. Or, you're taking away from the wrestling or anything like that. I'm like, no, if it serves a point, or if it's entertaining or whatever, it can work just beautifully. I remember I was at Supercard of Honor 7 WrestleMania weekend the year I went, and I got mad at the crowd when they started chanting "We want wrestling" at the start of the show when the manager was trying to get heat on his guy and talking to try and get his character across and everything, and I was just like, guys, will you shut up? And like, come on, I'm trying to listen to what these guys say, and plus he was funny, that's fine, it's completely fine, but so I'm not one of those purist types. I'm just saying from a pacing standpoint, this thing went on forever. It went on way too long with no direction or point up until Ronda Rousey showed up. And like I said, I'll get into that. But when there was a point where Rock came out, it took him forever to get down to the ring. It really did feel like they were milking time to try and kill time or whatever. Which, like I said, going back to what I said about the Battle Royal, you could have fit the Battle Royal on this show. I'm just saying. This segment did not need to be that long. But Rock started talking, so I went to the bathroom to go take a piss. I come back, they're still talking. I was like, oh my God, this thing is still going. And with no signs of stopping either. It was almost as long as Mr. T's Mama speech from last year. It was just, oh my God, this thing went on forever. And all I could think of in my brain, again, peanut gallery, riffing, Mystery Science Theater, bad influence on me. One of my favorite jokes in the history of Mystery Science Theater was the Manos the Hands of Fate, that episode. And that episode opens up, they're watching the movie, and the movie is supposed to have an opening credit sequence, but somebody forgot to put the opening credits in. So it's just these long shots of moving footage, like for a car POV footage, basically, is the best way I can describe it. I'm sorry, I'm not I'm not a filmmaker or anything, I don't know the terminology, but it's basically just long stretches of just this car driving down the road and getting all this, like, what looks like bad home movies, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on, and because there's no opening credits, you don't know what the fuck's going on and what the point is. And the robots and Joel, they just kind of sit there and just keep going, Manos, the Hands of Fate. Maybe at some point we'll find Manos, the Hands of Fate. In case you've forgotten, people, Manos, the Hands of Fate. And this talking segment went on so long that that's all I could think of while it was going on, where I was like, Manos, the Hands of Fate. In case you've forgotten, people, Manos, the Hands of Fate. And, of course I always rip off people that are better than me. Mystery Science Theater, way better than me. But I was just amazed at how long this was going. I was just like, is there a point to this? Is this going to stop at all? And then eventually they worked in Ronda Rousey, which was great and was awesome, and at least ended the thing on a high note. And I think getting her is a good idea. And I think she's a great celebrity to add into the mix and everything, a great outside personality. And if they have something planned for her down the road, I think it would be great. And I think her involvement was fine. And a friend of mine said this, it was, that was a long and arduous road to get to that short of a payoff. I'm like, yeah, I know. It was like, it makes for a great 20-second clip when you just look at Ronda Rousey. And to me, it's like that segment could have been half as long and twice as effective, and they could have fit something else onto the show. But, that thing, like I said, it might still be going. I mean, it was that long. It just went on forever. And I'll say this. If they are honest to God getting ready to do Rock and Triple H at next year's WrestleMania, I am going to vomit. Because I'm not saying that they can't have a good match at this point in their careers. What I'm saying is I saw this match 8,000 times back in the late 90s and early 2000s. There is no reason to do this match again. It's like, all right, Triple H is a part-timer, Rock is a part-timer. They don't wrestle all the time. Don't you want to create new and exciting situations to put them in? Don't you want to try and use them in ways that we've never seen before? I've heard the rumor of a mixed tag with Ronda Rousey and Stephanie thrown in. That would be better than a one-on-one, because at least that would be different, and at least Ronda Rousey would be the star of the thing. But even Ronda Rousey, I'd rather see her go up against somebody. Like, could you imagine if they still had Karma or Awesome Kong? I mean, that'd be cool. Or even Charlotte, push her and I'll put her up against Ronda Rousey. I think that'd be, put somebody up against her that would be a conceivable threat to Ronda. But to throw Stephanie up against her, I think would be like a Bobby Heenan type of match where the heel gets destroyed in 30 seconds or whatever, and it'd be funny. So I understand that appeal there, but if you want to have a real match, I'd rather see somebody or if Chyna was in her prime and still there and not drugged out of her mind, I think that would have been like a cool thing to do. It's like, damn, just missed it by a decade and a half. But anyway, that segment took way too long. Ronda Rousey was cool and great and awesome, but it took way too long to get there, and that was a huge pacing issue with the show. That segment did not need to go on as long as it did. And if I see Rock and Triple H at next year's WrestleMania, I am just gonna ram my head into the wall, because here's a dirty little fun fact for you. That network that they keep selling to you for $9.99. You can literally see every Rock and Triple H pay-per-view match that they've ever had. Ever. And it's all right there at your fingertips. So, would you really want to see it again at WrestleMania 32? I wouldn't. To me, it would be like, all right, I've put over the Sting Vader matches. If you had asked me in 2004, would I want to see Sting and Vader again, I'd be like, no. I saw it. It was great back in the day. I want to see new matches. I want to see new pairings. If Vader can still go, put him up against somebody else. If Sting can still go, put him up against AJ Styles or somebody like that. I don't want to see him go up against Vader again. That's just not interesting to me. Flair and Steamboat, if you'd told me, their matches were great. They were phenomenal. Ask me in 1999, all right, would you want to see Flair and Steamboat again? No. I've seen it. It's over. We're good. I got it. We're fine. I don't need to see it again. Come up with new ideas. Come up with new pairings. Fresh. Be fresh. Fresh. I feel like I'm going to break out into the Mentos theme song there. But anyway, I don't want Rock and Triple H at WrestleMania 16 years after they should have had their singles match at WrestleMania, because that was one of their big boo-boos for WrestleMania 2000. It should have been Rock and Triple H one-on-one back at WrestleMania 2000. I don't care now. It's just that just feels like a sad attempt to relive the Attitude Era. And to me, it's like, I would rather see, if you're going to use Rock, if you're going to use Triple H, could you come up with a fresh match for them to be in? Like I said, the mixed tag with Ronda Rousey would be way more interesting, just because it's Ronda Rousey. It has nothing to do with Rock and Triple H. Just throwing Ronda Rousey into the mix would make that way more interesting. But in any case, we'll just move on from there. That's all I have to say about that. Next we've got Undertaker and Bray Wyatt. I'm not going to rant about the result. I am not going to complain that Bray Wyatt should have gone over. I've already made my piece about that. I predicted that was going to happen anyway. I said Taker was going to go over. I'm not going to complain about that. Although Bray should have gone over, I'm not going to go on a giant rant about that. What I will say is that this match was depressing to watch, because the bad expectations that we had for Sting, I felt like Undertaker lived up to in this match, because he did not look good. He was slow. He got gassed. The longer the match went, the worse it got. There was a point in the match where I believe he was supposed to be rising to his feet and staring Bray Wyatt down, because that's how Michael Cole called it. Granted, Cole's a shitty commentator, but or at least Vince tells him to say shitty things. But and as I think they were setting up, Undertaker was supposed to be slowly rising to his feet, and he just sort of kind of fumbled down to the ground. He worked most of the match from his back, because he looked like he could barely walk. And actually, to bring up WrestleMania 3 again, it kind of reminded me of Hogan Andre in that aspect, where Hogan had to keep Andre near the ropes whenever he knocked him down or did anything with him, just so Andre would be able to stand upright. And I kind of felt like maybe Bray should have done that with Taker, because he looked like he was struggling. His hair looked awful. That looked sad. He looked like my dad. Which, not that I'm insulting my dad, I just don't, I don't want the Undertaker to look like my dad. It's just, he doesn't look like Undertaker anymore, and it's sad. And this match was horrible. This was the one match on the show. Okay, Cena Rusev wasn't bad. The Divas match was pure filler, not offensive. Triple H and Sting, hated the ending, but the match itself was fun. Orton and Rollins was very good. The ladder match, like I said my piece about multi-man ladder matches, but it was a car wreck match. It was fun to watch for that. I'm going to talk about the main event in a little bit, but Taker Bray was the one match on this show where I was like, that was horrible. That was just, and it was sad. It was depressing. And I'm just saying again, Undertaker, you had a great career. You had a great run. And if you were to ask me if I was a fan of Undertaker, I would say yes. Undertaker is one of the greatest of all time. I was a big fan of his back in the day. At one point, I was also a big fan of The Simpsons, and I will tell you that from seasons 2 to, I would even go as far as most people would say 2 to 8. I would be nice and say 2 to about 12 or 13. I was still watching the show regularly and enjoying it. The Simpsons is one of the greatest shows of all time. It is not now. I want it to be over, just so I can appreciate how awesome it used to be. Undertaker, you had a great career. You had a great run, and I love you for it, and you're great and everything. Could you please just stop and not do this anymore? Because I honestly believe he poured his heart and soul into this match, and that was the best we could get. I truthfully believe that. He don't look like he just doesn't look like Taker anymore, and to me, it's depressing. The streak's over. That was the last thing he had to give. I don't want to see him work with Sting next year because that's no bueno. That's no. Based on what I saw in this show, I was like, no. When the match was over, I was like, Undertaker's about to have the worst part of his night because he has to walk back up that ramp. I don't know if he's going to make it, but they might have to get the stretcher car out there or whatever that thing is, the cart, to cart him out of there because he looked like he could barely move. He was slow and not in that I'm selling type of way, that I'm legitimately struggling type of way. And any nice thing I have to say about this match can be attributed to Bray Wyatt, who deserves an A for effort. I thought his entrance was very cool. It would have worked better if it was, in nighttime, but it took a long time to get dark at that particular time zone and that, and everything. So it didn't quite have that effect to it. But I thought the entrance overall was actually pretty cool with him bringing the scarecrows to life and having them march with him. I thought that was actually kind of creepy and had a cool effect. And it's one of those things, could have easily been cheesy and stupid, but it worked very well. And I thought the spot where he did the spider walk and Undertaker sat up, that was probably the spot of the match right there. When Undertaker did the tombstones, I legitimately cringed because I thought he was going to drop Bray on his head because he looked like he could barely hold him up, and I just didn't like the way Undertaker looked in this match. And to me, if this is a sign of what we're going to get next year in his match with Sting, I'd rather not see the match. And I'm not going to get upset over the outcome. I'm not going to get I'm not even going to be mad about it. I'm just saying, this made me sad. It depressed me to watch this. I'm like, this is sad. Like, this is not Undertaker anymore. Sting surpassed expectations. Undertaker continues to regress, and it's depressing. And I did not enjoy watching that at all. And my friends and I, we were sitting there looking at it just like, this is sad. I mean, do they really have to keep wheeling him out there every year? I mean, this is getting depressing at this point. But whatever. That match was what it was. Now it's time to talk about the main event, which was also a barrel of monkeys and a lot of fun to watch. Mainly because Roman Reigns gave us exactly what we wanted in that he got his ass kicked by Brock Lesnar, and the match was basically a squash. I thought the fact that they worked the match the way they did the Cena match at SummerSlam, I thought was actually very clever and a good way to kind of keep consistency there. And I get that they were trying to build sympathy on Roman Reigns. It did not work. Brock was the babyface completely all the way through. And, the whole Suplex City bitch and all that stuff was great, and it was just fun to watch Brock Lesnar. I mean, I'm not going to say this is one of my favorite matches or anything, but just watching Brock Lesnar just ragdoll Reigns the entire time was so great. But in the back of my mind, I was sitting there, like, Reigns is going to win this with 3 moves. I could kind of see it coming. And then when he hit the post, when Brock hit the post and busted open, which was brutal and really elevated the match in terms of, the brutality that was on display and really set it apart from a lot of other WWE matches that you see now. And that's another aspect that Brock brings, where his matches are worked and portrayed so differently from everybody else's. So it really makes him more of a special attraction. But that really raised the stakes, raised the violence and everything. So that was cool. But then when Reigns started doing the Superman punches and the spears, I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And then Seth Rollins came out. And I was like, wait a minute, the match isn't over yet. Can he cash in? What's the rule on this? I don't know. And when he cashed in and they made it a triple threat match, my heart sank again because I was like, oh no, that's how Reigns is going to get the pin. He's going to pin Seth and win the title. That did not happen. Seth Rollins won the title and walked out of WrestleMania as the champion, to which the biggest sigh of relief washed over me and my friends. We were like, oh, thank God. It was like, oh, we've been spared. Yay! And it was, so the ending was very, very cool. So I'll give them a lot of credit for that. I knew it was a trump card they could play. I didn't predict it would happen, but I said a couple months ago, I was like, they have that trump card there. They could definitely play it, and they did, and it was a really fun ending to WrestleMania, and really happy. And I said that Seth should be the heel champion heading into WrestleMania 32, and they've definitely set him up for that, which is great. And he's got a lot of feuds. He's got Brock, he's got Roman Reigns, he's got Dean Ambrose, if they want to revisit that. and he's got Randy Orton, which it looks like that's going to be the first one right off the bat. It's like, oh, hey, Orton beat him earlier in the night. That legitimizes Orton as a contender without having to do the bullshit, oh, he beat him in a non-title match. It was kind of like Owen and Brett at 10, where Owen beat Brett in their match, but Brett walked out of Mania with the belt, so then it's like, all right, we've got that to play with. We can build up that title match. Of course, this build-up won't go till SummerSlam because we got to have one pay-per-view a month. It'll go to Extreme Rules, most likely. But in any case, it looks like they've got a lot of stuff that they can do with Seth as champion. And I think Seth is great. I think he's a great heel, and I think they can definitely get some mileage out of that, and it'll be very good. So great ending to WrestleMania. And this is where I will tie it into what I mentioned with WrestleMania 3 in the ladder match, and looking at the show as a whole, basically. Rewatching WrestleMania 3 again, something clicked in my brain that I never noticed before, and it never dawned on me before, but this is how my wrestling logic kind of works and how my brain operates when I watch this crap. Billy Jack Haynes and Hercules had a match on that show. And it was a good feud over who had the better full Nelson. Very basic, but, it's wrestling logic, and it worked very well, at least in my mind. I enjoyed the match. I thought the match was good. Unfortunately, it ended with a double countout, and I always felt like that was a little anticlimactic. I was like, I would have liked a real finish there, but the match was overall good. And again, rewatching the show again, I get to the main event, and you get to that point with Hogan and Andre where Andre knocks Hogan out of the ring and they start brawling outside the ring. And the first words out of Jesse Ventura's mouth at the booth, "Don't let this match end in a countout." And I don't know why. It clicked in my brain. It was like, oh my God, his fears are completely legitimate because a double countout happened earlier in the show. So Jesse's fears of the match ending in a countout have contextual legitimacy to it because it actually happened earlier in the show. And once Jesse expresses that, his fears become the audience's fears. Because, oh my God, that could actually happen. Because I saw it happen earlier in the show. And I was like, oh my God, the Billy Jack Hercules match ties into the main event and adds to the drama of the Hogan-Andre match in a way that I never even fully realized before. And definitely gets lost in translation if you watch it one match, if you just watch the Hogan-Andre match without watching the rest of the show. That gets lost. I was like, oh my God. And you know what? It was probably completely unintentional. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? That actually makes that line from Jesse make a lot of sense and actually adds to the drama of the match. This WrestleMania and this main event had a very similar thing to it. For months, they did the thing where Dean Ambrose kept interrupting Seth Rollins' cash-ins with the Money in the Bank. And it was like, oh my God, Seth cannot cash in as long as Dean Ambrose is around because he's just always going to interrupt the cash-ins. Where was Dean Ambrose in the main event of the show? Why did he not stop Seth Rollins? Where was that? Oh wait, in the ladder match, the sign of brilliance that this ladder match had, Luke Harper powerbombed Dean Ambrose from the inside of the ring to the outside of the ring through a ladder. That was the end of Dean Ambrose's night. He's done. He ain't getting up. He's done for the night. You're not coming back from that. Might have been completely unintentional. I'm willing to bet that it was. But in my brain and in trying to make sense out of everything, it's like it makes total sense that Dean Ambrose did not come out in that main event because he got powerbombed through a ladder and he was physically unable to stop Seth Rollins. And that was how Seth was able to get out there and cash in the title the way he did. And I'm like, oh my God, it all clicks. It all makes sense. Whether that was the intention or not, I don't know, but it makes sense to me, and it's an extra layer to me, and it makes sense to me, so I'll buy it, I'll go with it, and whether it was intended or not, I don't care. It makes the show work better for me. And again, that's how, the star rating quota thing, judging a show, doesn't really work for me, because there's so many other aspects and so many other layers and subtleties and nuances that, again, might be unintentional. The Billy Jack Haynes Hercules thing was probably completely unintentional. But the fact that it happened, it adds to the drama of the Hogan-Andre match. The fact that Dean Ambrose got powerbombed through a ladder, might have been unintentional, but it added to the legitimacy of Seth being able to cash in the Money in the Bank later in the show. So there's more to a wrestling show than just star ratings, basically. But that is it for WrestleMania, and those were my thoughts on WrestleMania 31. I'm sorry, WrestleMania play button. Sorry, want to get the title right. Those are my thoughts on it overall. Not a bad show. It was not the train wreck that the build-up would have suggested. I stand by every negative thing I said about the build-up because it deserved it. And in my mind, WWE needed to dig themselves out of a hole. And especially in the main event, they did. They fixed that and were able to make that work and at least ended the show on a high note. The rest of the show, Bray and Undertaker was terrible, and it depressed me and made me sad. Sting and Triple H was better than anybody thought it would be and was a lot of fun up until the finish. Cena and Rusev, not a bad match, even though the finish was obvious as fuck. Divas match was filler, but unoffensive. The ladder match, same as every other ladder match, but was good, and at least in my brain it had that one stroke of brilliance, which may have been completely accidental, but whatever, I'll go with it, I'll take it. Orton and Rollins was my favorite match on the show and very good. So looking at it as a whole, and like I said, the Rock segment went on way too long, but Ronda Rousey was cool. The concert was awful, and America the Beautiful was sadly bad, unfortunately. Please bring Aretha Franklin back. I don't care how old she is. But in any case, looking at the show as a whole, I thought it was overall not a train wreck. They definitely fixed some things. It ended on a high note and was overall a better WrestleMania than one would have thought given the build-up. I will definitely say that. It was not one of my favorite WrestleManias. There was definitely some problems with it, especially in who went over, because, again, it had that aspect. Cena went over again, Triple H went over again, Undertaker went over again, and all of that stuff. But it wasn't in my mind at least, it wasn't the complete disaster that a lot of people thought it would be. Now, the next thing to talk about WWE related is the Post Mania Raw, which has become a bit of a tradition, one of the most highly anticipated wrestling shows of the year, actually. Just because you're going to get the crazy, smarky crowd, you're going to get all sorts of nutty things, and you're going to get kind of a reset to see where the storylines are going to go post Mania. So there's a lot of intrigue there as well. I thought the Raw was very good. It was one of the better episodes of Raw in quite a while and in a long time. They did a lot of things to kind of spice things up a little bit and kind of break the monotony. Sheamus turning heel I thought was really good. For him especially, because him as a babyface just never worked. I mean, he got to a point where he was more obnoxious than Cena. He was that bad. And yeah, the hair looks stupid and the little beard ties, those could be okay if the hair didn't look so bad. But the fans kind of shat on him for it. It's like, you look stupid and all that other stuff. So maybe that'll be a source of heat for him and they can do something with that. So whatever they have to do, it's better than him as a babyface. I don't care. And I thought his return was actually pretty well done. Excuse me. I thought there were some good matches on the show. I thought Bryan versus Ziggler was good. I thought Cena versus Ambrose, even though Cena went over, I thought that match was good. I thought even the Divas six-woman tag, I thought that match was actually pretty good because they let Natty kind of go out there and do her thing. What else? The 8-man tag I thought was pretty good, namely because they threw in the Lucha Dragons to make their Raw debut, and they threw the Ascension in there, so it had an NXT flavor to it. And I thought it was a different kind of match that you don't normally get, especially from the tag division. And actually, NXT kind of took over the show a little bit, with the Lucha Dragons having a strong debut, and Adrian Neville having a strong debut. He came out and no Mighty Mouse gimmick, which I kept hearing reports of that, which every time I read that, I was like, all right, what do they mean by Mighty Mouse? Is he literally going to dress up like a mouse with a superhero cape, or is he going to be a really small guy that has amazing feats of strength and high flies all over the place? Because the latter sounds very cool. The former sounds horrible and would destroy his career. It looks like they're going with the latter, where he's a really small guy with amazing feats of strength and does a lot of high flying. The only part about it I didn't like was that they dropped the Adrian and now he's just Neville. It's like, that's a Vince McMahon thing. He's like, he's got to drop names from people. I don't know. He's a weirdo. Vince McMahon's a fucking weirdo. It's like, whatever. I should make peace with that. But in any case, I thought his debut came off very well. I'm trying to think what else was on the show that I liked. I mean, there was the big angle, obviously, but I want to make sure that I got everything. I think that's about it. But yeah, the big angle of the show, which involved Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins, was awesome. I thought they did a fantastic job with that. Seth came off great as a heel that weaseled his way out of the match. Brock came off as a fucking monster that destroyed everything in his path, and it was just awesome to see. Now, I talked about how much I didn't like Brock as a babyface in 2003. This babyface Brock I can get behind because he's just a fucking monster that destroys everything, and he's not one of those clean-cut, moral high ground babyfaces like John Cena, so whenever he does something that's kind of like a bully, where he acts like a bully or insulting or just acts like a jerk, it doesn't betray the character. It's like, no, he's not a role model, he's not taking a moral high ground. He's just really pissed off and he's going to fuck you up. And that's awesome. I can get behind that. And Stephanie coming out and suspending him was also great because it allows them to hold off on the Rollins-Lesnar match and build more anticipation for it, because Seth came out of this stronger for it, Lesnar came out of this stronger for it, and it makes the intrigue for their eventual matchup even better. And Rollins, like I said, they've got a lot of options with him for feuds, what with Roman, Randy, Lesnar, plenty of stuff they could do with him. So, yeah, I look forward to seeing what they do, because it could be very good. What else do I want to say about this? After the announcers got beat up, and Cole got F5'd, which was awesome, and all that stuff. Having Byron Saxton and Jerry Lawler go out there and try to commentate the rest of the show was actually done with great effect, because they seemed shell-shocked, and like it was this awkward, but in a good way. It was kind of this awkward feeling to it, where they were standing in the middle of a war zone that had just gone on, and they didn't really know how to react to it or how to handle it. And I thought that came off very believably, and I thought that was actually very cool, and I did enjoy that. So it gave Raw a very nice flavor that it doesn't normally have, and it was actually very exciting, in addition to all the other stuff that they did that I liked. The only bad thing I really have to say about Raw was the main event, which, aside from the crowd acting like assholes, which was great, and I had no problem with that. The match was just dull. I mean, it was just boring. It was the same old trope that we see all the time, where a bunch of guys get thrown into a six-man tag, playa. We gonna have a tag team match, playa. And we're just going to throw them into the match, and the good guys are going to win because the bad guys won last night, and blah, 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 all that other stuff. So I thought the main event was really weak and kind of boring and just didn't really do it for me. But other than that, I thought Raw was very strong and very good, and I'm definitely looking forward to a Lesnar-Rollins title match down the road. I think they can get some good stuff out of that. So, Mania, WWE managed to fix some things. They screwed up some things, but they also managed to fix some things. And on Raw the next night, I felt like they came through pretty well. So overall, WWE definitely showing signs of improvement. And finally, I get to close out with my new monthly tradition of listing my top 10 favorite matches of the previous month. So for March of 2015, here are my top 10 favorite matches. I'm sorry, I'm doing kind of a rush job here, so I've got to read the list off my computer. I gotta say, maybe it was because it was Mania season, but it seemed like a lot of the companies really brought their A game, whether it was building up big matches or doing big matches on TV or whatever. And even WWE got their act together, at least tried to do better than what they had been doing. So, I don't know, maybe it was just Mania fever, but I definitely had a lot of matches to pick from, and it was actually hard to get this down to 10 selections. When I looked at the list, I think I had close to 30 overall. So I had to narrow that down pretty heavily. So getting it down to 10 was pretty tough, but I did it. So here we go. Let me pull up the list, see what I had. All right, number 10. AJ Styles versus ACH from Ring of Honor's 13th anniversary show at the beginning of the month. I just really like this match. I mean, it was nice to see AJ play kind of the wily veteran that was outsmarting the younger guy, because when I first saw AJ, over a decade ago, he would be the flashy young guy that was hitting all the spots that was more athletic and kind of out being a better athlete than the veterans, but then the veterans would outsmart him. Here, he's kind of playing that veteran role, And ACH was the guy that was more athletic than him and kind of outdoing him in that aspect, but AJ was able to outsmart him and stuff. And I thought overall, just a really strong match, and my favorite match from that particular show. I know a lot of people love the Red Dragon Young Bucks match, but I've already said my piece about how, yes, the match was enjoyable, but it also was an affront to tag team psychology, and it was... It may be on a top 30 or 20, but not on my top 10 of the month. No, unless it was a bad month, and then it would probably get on there. But anyway, next up, we have a match from TNA. Bobby Lashley versus Kurt Angle for the TNA World Title from the March 20th episode of Impact. My birthday, so I think I have to throw some consideration, right? It was a big title match that happened on my birthday. Like I said, TNA is at least trying to do some things right. They aren't always succeeding, and like I said, there's still some dumb crap on the show, and you got the Beatdown Clan feuding with Drew Gallows and his... Drew Galloway, I'm sorry. Drew McIntyre from the WWE, for those of you who don't know. And he's got a group now. It's like, yay, gang warfare, because TNA never does that, ever. It's one of the only things they know how to do. But anyway, they're at least trying to make the main events of their show and the big matches on their show feel like big deals and try to make them work, and I can respect that at least. And this match, Bobby Lashley versus Kurt Angle, at least felt bigger than the typical TNA World Title match, because most of them just kind of feel like throwaways at this point. This one at least felt like it was a big-ish match, at least big for TNA. Angle won the belt, which was fine. And I thought overall the match was pretty good. I thought they meshed together really well, and I thought their styles complemented each other very well. So overall, I did really enjoy this match and was a pretty good World Title match from TNA. So no complaints there. Number 8, Bobby Roode versus Eric Young in a Last Man Standing match from the 313 episode of Impact the week before. Again, just a great hardcore match, basically. That's really all there is to say about it. I feel like this feud's gone on way too long. They're having a submission match on Impact this week, which, hooray, haven't overplayed that card. But I feel like this match should have been the closer to the feud, because I felt like, Roode got his revenge. It was this brutal war. It was very violent, very good, and really well worked out. I thought brought a lot of closure to the whole storyline. So to me, there's no reason to do a rematch. So, oh well, what are you going to do? But in any case, I thought the match was very good and overall a great feud ender to a feud that initially wasn't very interesting. So at least they were able to come through in the climax. But, well, I call it a feud ender. It's not a feud ender because they're having another match this week. But whatever. Maybe I can just erase that match from my brain. Who knows? But anyway, number 7, Seth Rollins versus Randy Orton from WrestleMania 31. Like I said, this was my favorite match from this particular WrestleMania. I thought both guys worked very well. I thought the finish was very creative, very cool, very well executed, and definitely made the match memorable. I'm definitely looking forward to see what else they can do, because obviously they're going to be having the title matches going forward, at least in this Post Mania period that we have here. So I think they could have some really good matches down the road as well. But as far as WrestleMania goes, this was my favorite match on the card, and I really enjoyed it. Seth Rollins was definitely the star of WrestleMania 31, what with his role in the main event and the big cash-in and everything. And he ended up having the best match as well. So, this was his night to shine, definitely. And he came through in all aspects. This match was great. Loved it. Let's see the rest of the list. Okay, number 6. I am cheating here, and I'm actually combining matches into one slot. From the dates of March 5th to March 15th, New Japan Pro Wrestling held the New Japan Cup tournament to determine a number 1 contender to one of their major championships. I am counting the best matches from the tournament all in one slot. If I didn't do that, then I would have had to give multiple spots on the list to the tournament, and to me, I wanted to have more variety on the list. So I figured, well, since all the tournament matches are building the same story anyway, I mean, all tournament matches are building blocks in the same overall story and are building to the same end game. So, I could kind of reason that I could count them all in one slot. So overall, I really liked the New Japan Cup tournament. I thought it came off fairly well. And some of the matches I thought came off really, really well. Let's list some of the ones I had here. For round 1, I liked Bad Luck Fale versus Kazuchika Okada. I thought they had a really good match. I thought Honma and Makabe had a really good match in the first round. Naito and Anderson had a bit of a finisher fest, one-sided finisher fest, where Naito kind of played Super Cena, but still very good. So those were the best matches from the first round. From the second round, you had Naito versus Bad Luck Fale, which I really liked. You had the battle of the tag partners, Hiroki Goto versus Shibata. That match was very good. I thought it was a nice little attraction, the tag team partners facing each other. And then on the semifinal round on the main show, on the 15th, I thought both semifinal matches were good. You had Makabe taking on Goto. That match was very good. And probably the best match in the entire tournament. If I had to pick one tournament match to be on this list, it would be Tetsuya Naito versus Kota Ibushi. I thought that match was very, very good, very strong. Great babyface match where both guys were just kind of, trying to outdo each other, basically. And overall made for a great, exciting, athletic contest. And Ibushi got the win there, moved on to the finals, and that leads me to the final match of the tournament. In the finals, you had Hiroki Goto taking on Kota Ibushi, and Ibushi won. The match was really good, and Ibushi winning was very, very cool and sets up that AJ Styles, Kota Ibushi IWGP World Title match, which I am definitely looking forward to. Unfortunately, the show is this weekend, which is Easter weekend, so I'm going to be kind of busy. Won't be able to see it probably until early next week, but I can live with that. I can put it off a day or two as long as it's not spoiled for me. So definitely looking forward to that match. I think it's going to be very good. Now we're going to go into the top 5 here. Number 5, Prince Puma versus Cage for the Lucha Underground Championship in a Boyles Heights street fight from the March 25th episode of Lucha Underground. This is the first really big world title match that they've done. I know they've done Puma versus Fenix. I know that they did the Aztec Warfare match to determine the first champion. But this was the first grudge match with build-up that they had done for a big championship match. And the payoff I thought was very good. I thought Puma came off looking like a great underdog. I thought Cage came off looking like a fucking beast that probably only surpassed by Brock Lesnar at this point in the wrestling business. So that was all very good. And overall, it was this great, no disqualification spectacle with all these crazy spots and everything. And Prince Puma got the win, and we'll see what happens with him and Cage going forward. But overall, again, great feud ender, great build-up, great payoff, great match all around. Loved it. Number 4, another Lucha Underground match. Johnny Mundo versus King Cuerno in the first ever Lucha Underground cage match. This was from the March 11th episode of Lucha Underground. This was the main event of the show. They had done the match that ended in a double countout, and they had that brawl all over the arena. So great setup for a cage match. Again, it's nice to have a cage match where the gimmick is actually warranted, and it's one-on-one, so it's not just this crazy, bodies flying all over the place. It's just a straight-up grudge match. Who's going to win? It's a violent spectacle. And overall, just great stuff all around. Johnny Mundo, great athlete. Anybody who's ever seen him before will tell you he's amazing, and he did some great stuff in here. And it had that great grudge match feel to it, where it felt like this was, again, a great feud ender and a great payoff to the build-up that they had established. So, really enjoyed the match. It was a great first cage match for Lucha Underground, and if that's a sign of the stuff that they can do with cage matches, I look forward to seeing more of them. Not too many of them, because you don't want to oversaturate it. Lockdown, looking at you. But to do these when it's warranted and when it's time to do them is totally cool, and I love it, and it's great. And it's I thought that match came off very well. Number 3, Ethan Carter III versus Rockstar Spud from the March 13th episode of Impact. Yeah, 2 Friday the 13th matches on here. That's really weird. And they're both TNA matches. There are 3 TNA matches on this list. Either I'm going fucking insane, or TNA is actually trying. Or, it's probably the former. I've gone completely insane. But whatever. Ethan Carter III, EC3 versus Rockstar Spud, just had this great old school heel versus face thing to it, where you had this great underdog baby face that had won over the support of the crowd, and this great arrogant heel in EC3 that was clearly the favorite in this thing. And it just, the story basically wrote itself. It was basically New Age version of DiBiase and Virgil in a lot of ways. And I thought the match came off very, very well. Again, the build-up wasn't always the greatest going in, but I love EC3. I legitimately like him. I think he's a diamond in the rough for TNA. And of all the problems I have with the TNA product at this point, I think he's holding up his end of the bargain and is actually a really good part of the show. And I think they need to keep using him and doing big things with him because, using him in situations like this, which you wouldn't expect much out of this match looking at it on paper, because it's like, who the fuck are these guys? I mean, what... And TNA is so directionless right now, or has been directionless for so long that you kind of look at their shows like, well, I don't want to know who these guys are at this point. But they kind of made it work and were able to have a really good match out of it. That was very exciting, where you legitimately felt bad for Rockstar Spud when it was over, and you legitimately hated EC3 when he beat up Spud after the match and shaved his head like a dick. And it was like, wow, this is just great old school stuff. I loved it. And it was... more violent than most TNA matches are these days. I mean, we talked about it with Lesnar and Reigns and how the blood in that match really elevated it. I mean, that was kind of the case here as well, where it was a lot more violent than you would have expected. They even had to, gray out some of it because it got a little graphic, or at least too graphic for Destination America. But all in all, I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was a strong main event of the show. I'll even go as far to say it's the best match that TNA has had since they've been on Destination America, and I really enjoyed it. It was great stuff. Number 2 is an NXT match, the biggest match they had this month. It was WrestleMania week, so they had to come through and deliver a big match. On the March 25th episode, we got Kevin Owens defending the NXT World Title against Finn Balor. I already talked about the match extensively last week. Well, I guess I've already talked about most of these matches, but it was just a great match. It was just very, very good, and Owens continues to play that kind of thinking man's brute very, very well. And whenever he attacked Balor's leg throughout the match, I was like, oh, God, this is brutal. I'm like, this guy's a monster. He's a killer. And, again, probably second only to Brock Lesnar. So it's nice to see these big athletic powerhouse guys in wrestling. It really makes for some great characters and great stories and great matches. So, yeah, I thought the match was great. I thought Finn Balor, for his first big NXT, main event, basically. I mean, this was a main event. I thought he did really well. I think there's definitely room for a rematch, especially him doing the face paint, because they seem to try and paint the idea that the Demon Balor and the regular Balor are two separate personalities. Not so much, disassociated personality disorder. This isn't Fight Club or anything, but, there's a different mindset with Balor when he has the face paint on and everything, and I think there's definitely something to play with there that they can do for an eventual rematch. And overall, I thought this match was very strong, very good, great main event for NXT, and it was just great. I just really liked it. But my number one favorite match of the month is a Lucha Underground match. One of their main events, one of the many main events that they had this month. They had a lot of big main events this month, but Fenix versus Mil Muertes in the Grave Consequences match from the, March 18th episode of Lucha Underground. I did a video talking about how this might be the best casket match ever made, or ever done. It might be. It was very, very good. I would probably put Shawn and Undertaker from the Rumble above it, but it was a very, very, very good casket match that, again, the feud kind of called for the gimmick, given the heightened reality that you get out of somebody, a character like Mil Muertes, who is a great character and great wrestling gimmick. I think I've gone on record and said before, it's like the best wrestling gimmick since Kane. And I mean like 97, 98 Kane. Just when they did that video package explaining his backstory, it just blew my mind. I'm like, this guy's awesome. That great character. Love it. The way that Katrina was worked into the whole storyline and everything, and how she ultimately, put the kibosh on her relationship with Mil and went with Fenix and what's going to happen there going forward. Again, it's all very interesting. But they kept building this match up, and ultimately you get to this point, and it was violent, but not in the way that you would expect, because a lot of matches that go for violence today, it's always done with barbed wire and thumbtacks and over-the-top chair shots and table spots and stuff like that. This was just a beating. I mean, this is it's sort of like, again, to compare it to the WrestleMania main event, Reigns and Lesnar, Suplex City, bitch. It was just, it was just Mil Muertes beating the crap out of Fenix, ripped his mask open and bloodied him up and just beating the shit out of him, and they brawled all over the temple, brawled all over the venue, and it just captured this really big, violent atmosphere. Like, oh my God, he is just absolutely brutalizing Fenix. And again, great heel babyface dynamic there, where unlike the WrestleMania main event where you didn't feel sorry for Roman Reigns at all because nobody liked him anyway, Fenix was able to get that sympathy because the fans already liked him. So it was able to work a lot better in that aspect, at least getting sympathy on the babyface. And Mill looked like a complete monster here. I mean, he looked he looked scary. Like, he looked downright just monstrous here, just beating down Fenix. And the way they ripped the mask open and the blood was going everywhere, it was like I said, it looked like it created the illusion like he had ripped Fenix's face open or something. It just looked ghastly. It looked awesome at the same time, though. And it was just this really violent, over-the-top spectacle that really, I'd go as far to say, arguably the best match that Lucha Underground's done so far. And it was, again, a great feud ender. They built up this feud for quite a while, a couple months, do the casket match, and that's the end of the feud, and we'll see what goes on with all the characters from, moving forward from there. But, man, I was really blown away by this match. I wasn't sure what to expect out of this match, and I think that's another thing. It wasn't that I had low expectations or high expectations. I didn't know what they were going to do. I didn't know how Lucha Underground was going to present what was essentially a casket match. And what we got was one of the most wild brawls I've seen in a long time. And again, without a lot of the conventions that you expect in brawls like thumbtacks and barbed wire and all that. It was just a legitimately brutal match that had a casket in it. And they used the casket effectively as a weapon at points. So, this match just really blew my mind. I was like, man, that is the most I've enjoyed. One of the most enjoyable matches I've seen all year, I think. And great job by Lucha Underground on that one. That was a great main event. And of all the string of main events they did this month, what with Puma and Cage, Alberto and Tejano in the bull rope match, the cage match with Mundo and King Cuerno, I thought this one was the best of the bunch. And I thought it was very, very exciting and a lot of fun to watch. And made me a happy fan. So with all that leads me into what was the best wrestling brand of the month. Like I said, WrestleMania season seemed to bring out the best in a lot of guys. NXT obviously did that big match with Balor and Owens. Lucha Underground had a lot of big main events. New Japan did their tournament, which, I mean, they were going to do that anyway, whether it was WrestleMania season or not. But TNA actually showed signs of improvement, amazingly. WWE fixed some things, and at least Raw was very good. And WrestleMania, like I said, they fixed a lot of stuff with the main event and everything, and did some things right. So, WrestleMania season seemed to bring out the best in a lot of the different companies. But if I had to pick a best wrestling brand of the month, I'm going to give it to Lucha Underground. Speaking of consistency, week after week after week after week, this month, they've delivered the best programming that they've done ever since they've been on the air. I'm telling you, it was just a joy watching Lucha Underground. And actually, the episode is on tonight. They're having a new episode on tonight, and I can't wait to watch it. I talked about it earlier with Raw, how it was more exciting waiting a week to get that episode of Raw. I feel that way about Lucha Underground now, because every show, they've just, whether it's their cinematic approach with the way they handle the presentation of the show, the way they produce the show, where it's kind of a TV show within a show, and I really love the whole presentation of it. The storylines, the feuds they do are very good. I love Dario Cueto as a heel boss. I think he's really put a great spin on the evil authority character, and that's just great. I love the talents. I love so much of the show, and this last month they've delivered some of their best programming ever, and I can't praise them enough for that. So if I had to pick a wrestling show that I have enjoyed the most this month, it would definitely be Lucha Underground. They've stolen my heart. It's wonderful. But after all that ranting, raving, rambling, reviewing, riffing, and all the other bullshit I did, that is all I have for now. Super long video, but I hope you all enjoyed it. I don't think I'm going to be able to put up a second video this week because obviously with Easter and everything, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff with the family. I'm actually going to a wedding on Saturday, so that's going to be fun. So I'm going to be really busy. But I'll try and be back next week with something. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about, but hopefully within the next week I'll find a topic that'll interest me and I'll be able to talk about it. But that is all I have for now. Hope you all enjoyed WrestleMania. It's obviously big weekend for wrestling fans, so I hope you all had a blast. I enjoyed watching it. Like I said, whatever criticisms I have of the show, I did have a blast watching it the way I watched it. So, I did get that enjoyment out of it. But I hope you all enjoyed your WrestleMania weekend. I hope you all continue to enjoy wrestling. I hope you all continue to have a good week. Happy Easter to all of you, to those of you that celebrate Easter. And that is all I have for now. So until then, peace out, and I will see you all later.